A lot of conversation this weekend about Arsenal being back, and there's one reason for that. Martin Odegaard is back in form, on flames, as the kids say. Am I allowed to use that term as a
No,
32-year-old?
it's not.
Stop now, Grandad. Come on.
He's on fire. And I think James actually, you tweeted saying something about him being one of the best midfielders in the world, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah. No, it was. But I got a lot of backlash from Arsenal fans actually because I said Jude is better than him. Because I
Oh.
basically my debate was where is Odegaard in terms of best midfielders in the world? I'd have him top 5 at least. And then I was looking at it and I was like, Rodri definitely ahead for me. I'd have, what did I just say? Bellingham ahead of him. And then after that, there's no player that I think is clear of him. I think there's debates you could have, but with my bias, I'd happily have Odegaard third, which Zach doesn't look happy about.
I just think Saicedo's not getting enough respect around here, man.
Oh, fuck off.
I
love Caicedo, but fuck off.
Nah, man, honestly, I can't. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything.
He played right back today. You don't play the best midfielder in the world at right back.
Nah, he did it. He did it, man. He stands there, and then as soon as we got the ball, he's straight in the middle, man. Honestly, no, look, I think if we're talking about consistency and how important he is to your team, I think there is an argument. I don't know. I have other things about Bellingham as well, but we won't talk about them today. I don't think.
No, please do.
Oh,
Because
please do.
this
Please do.
crazy
That's why
to
you're
me.
here.
The way people speak about Bellingham at the moment is mental, I find.
I think the midfield isn't his best position if we're talking like a central midfielder, man. I think his output's very good, which is why when he moves a bit more forward, he is very, very good. But if you're talking about just a complete midfielder, I'm just not sure. It depends. Go on.
I'd agree with that. I was going to say to you, James, where does Bellingham play? What is his position? Because I can't even really answer that. I see him as a box crasher. That's where he sort of lit the world up at the start of last season. But so was someone like Gundogan once, or Frank Lampard. But aside from the box crashing with those two, you knew what they could do in the middle of the park. So I'd actually have Odegaard above Jude. If you're talking about midfielders.
Can I just ask a quick question? Are we saying on current form, like right now, or are we saying overall, if you were picking an 11?
Overall.
Okay, and so Zach and Adam are both saying, well, no, actually, Zach's saying, is he even a midfielder? I like low-key agree that Jude's best, but it's weird, right? Like Tacticos keep saying, yeah, but people are misprofiling him as this like false nine. I'm like, but he's a striker. Like he's basically a forward. Because
do you know what it is about Jude? I'm not gonna say I watched him at Dortmund every week, and I'm not gonna say I watch Real Madrid every week because I don't. Yeah, but in the times I have watched him, and like we said last week, we spoke about Lampard and Gerrard. Obviously, they're like legends. They're legends for a reason. But I watched him for England in the Euros, and them passes that you see in every international break when you see the Gerrard comps and the Lampard comps, and they're just pinging it from straight on someone's toe. I just don't see him do that.
Hold on, Zach. Just to interrupt you here, there was quite a funny Gerrard comp recently.
Yeah,
and someone's like, players are fighting for their lives trying to control these balls.
Yeah, no, I did see that. That was a very, very bad comp. That was a bad comp. I think they done him dirty with that one. I know the exact comp. I think it was a Euro foot or something. Posted.
It's because someone said also it was a sample size of like 3 games because of what they had the rights to. But yeah, that really made me laugh.
No, yeah, but I just think I watched him in the Euros, and I didn't see him doing them kind of passes, which he doesn't have to do. I never really saw him getting the ball on a half turn and like threading balls through. Again, that could be down to Kane coming so deep. Like there's so many factors in the Euros. But I feel like the Euros was the first time that I watched him just every single game, and he had a long season and he must have been really tired. I appreciate all of that as well. But I never saw a player that was like a great passing midfielder. I never saw a player that was doing the doggies and tackling, but I have seen him do that though, so I'm not going to say that isn't his game. I think his best attributes that I saw in the Euros and what I've seen at Real Madrid is kind of just being in and around the box, which is a great like feature to have into your game. Like even the overhead kick, that's like a striker's finish. He scored a header from a rebound. I just think that when I've seen him arriving at the back post, like I said, these are amazing things, but I don't think that's like a midfielder thing to, you know. But then it's hard.
I see what you're saying, but does it matter? Does it matter if he? Just to bring this up, last season he played 28 games in the league, scored 19 goals, got 6 assists. In the Champions League, he played 11 games, got 4 goals, 5 assists. Bearing in mind, he won the league and Champions League with Real Madrid. I think Mbappe coming in has damaged his rep. I think that's made him look worse because he's now having to do doggy stuff. He's now trying to run in behind because Mbappe wants the ball to feet and to do.
But that's because, in my opinion, that's because he's not a midfielder. The reason Madrid have been bad this season is because they've lost Toni Kroos, not replaced him. They've lost that metronome, and now they're top heavy like PSG used to be. And that's because Jude is still part of that top heavy attack, ultimately, in my opinion.
I also think Jude, he said himself, I think, like he built his game on Steven Gerrard. So I think he wants to be like an all action midfielder.
Yeah.
But like that role doesn't really exist in the modern game. And I actually think like profile wise, like Jude's best stuff. Like when I like sit and watch Jude, I'm going, I don't want you receiving the ball off the centre back because I don't think you can ping like a 40-yard pass, and that's also fine. But what I do want is when the ball's wide, I want you in the box. Yeah. But because you're trying to do doggies up and down, like you're trying to be box to box, you can't do that. Like I think Adam, you just said it then. Gundogan in can't remember what year it was, but there was 2 seasons where Gundogan
2021, 2021. It was the COVID season
where he was box crashing midfielder, scored goals. That for me is Jude Bellingham, just at a better level, maybe scores better goals, and therefore I think like Odegaard, in my opinion, when I watch him, I go that's a midfielder.
Yeah, he runs the game. Like, he runs the game.
Yeah,
I love hearing all of this because Odegaard's my boy. So I'm more than happy for everyone to be. So what we're saying, basically, the title of this episode is that Jude Bellingham is just a luxurious Suchek because that's what it sounds like to me.
No, that's deep. How's an Arsenal fan not backing Odegaard? Like, surely you will have seen, and I've seen your tweets, like, you will have seen that you were like here without him, and just him being in the team level, like, lifts the level so much.
I do back him. I think he's the 3rd best midfielder in the world. I just think Jude is spoken of incredibly harshly. As I say, he was the main guy in a team that won League and Champions League last season. He came 3rd in the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying Odegaard's not a good player. I'm saying 3rd in the Ballon d'Or for a reason. I hear your point about, like, is he a midfielder? But I guess that's getting into definitions like what, as a player, who do you think is better, Odegaard or Jude, regardless of what position we're going to put them in?
Yeah. Now, Joes, I think me personally, I just see a midfielder as someone that like runs the game. I know we joked about Caicedo and, you know, we've got Odegaard, even Rodri when he plays. I feel like these players, if they play well, the team plays well. When I think of what Jude does, when I've seen him for England, and when I think his attribute is he has moments. Like Jude is a player that you can't really sub him because he has a moment in a game where you think, all right, he hasn't had his best game ever. He hasn't controlled the game. He hasn't run the game, but he can score an overhead kick in the last minute. He'll score a worldie. He can arrive late in the box. And I think that's what's great about Jude, which isn't like a midfield attribute. It's a great football player attribute, 100%. But when I think about like what a midfielder is, like the people that we've mentioned, like I said, obviously I watch Chelsea a lot, so I am biased when I talk about Chelsea players. But like Odegaard, like the reason Arsenal have been struggling in these games is because I feel like you struggle to get control in games. You come against West Ham, who are very, very poor, but nevertheless, it's still a great performance. Like he comes in and it's like your team's under control now. Do you know what I mean? Everything's just going, and I just think that's what a midfielder is to me. Is someone that can come and just control the game.
I think like what you just described there is also De Bruyne. Like De Bruyne, I think gets too much slack for being like this assist merchant. But I think the moment De Bruyne gets on a pitch, you have a sense of like it when you know, like we've all played football, right? Like when you're playing sevens, fives, whatever. You know when you get the ball in a sticky spot, you always give it to the guy that you go like, I know he won't lose it, or I know he can do something with it.
Yeah,
like that for me is De Bruyne. That's Odegaard. That's Pedri, by the way. Pedri for me is the one that trumps all of these guys, including Rodri. I think he's been just run ragged, but I think like Pedri on form is as good as any midfielder I've watched post like the Xavi.
There's some great ones out there coming through the ranks.
Someone we haven't mentioned that unfortunately, Adam, this one's going to drop on your lap is Phil Foden.
Yeah.
Where are you standing on him at the moment? Do you
Oh,
blame
Zach
him?
hates him, you know. Zach hates him.
His form's off the boil, but everyone's is, and I think this is actually a good point to say on Foden with Odegaard as well, because when Odegaard was out the team, Arsenal struggled to find goals. It's that simple, and these teams like these Arteta and Pep systems, it has been for the past 3 years of Pep, death by 1,000 passes, that kind of horseshoe across the box, and the moments happen in the pockets. Now, the moments for City last season when Foden would get it in the pocket and he'd rifle it into the top left corner, that stopped. Whereas Odegaard, it's finding that precision pass to someone, and that just completely went out the team. When Odegaard was out of it, Phil, I can't speak for him, but he's clearly just like off the boil individually. But as a collective, City are right now as well. I think one of the main gripes I've got, I'm sure we'll come on to the game, but one of the main gripes I've got with City right now is, and it's so cliche and like Yadar, but there is like fewer leaders in that team now, I think, than there was 5 years ago. Even like David Silva back in the day was like a dog. He'd lift other people up off the ball if he wasn't having the best of games. And Phil, for me, is a little bit of he shies away from those big moments when he's not doing something with the ball at his feet. And at the moment, it's not happening for him. And also, again, with Phil, he is a number 10, but there's no real spot for an out-and-out number 10 in the system we're currently playing as well. So you've got so many issues.
Also, the difficulty with him is he's a number 10, but he's not inherently that creative, in my opinion. He can make a final ball, but not in the way that an Odegaard would run the game. So you've got a player who kind of thrives off shooting from range last season. You're right. He was doing the same thing every game. People couldn't stop it. He was taking the ball in the half term. And because he was on a hot streak, it was so good. And I feel like a large part of that must be confidence, because when the way he plays, I think you've got to be confident, because you can't second guess yourself. You have to take the ball in the half turn and then bang it every time, and you'll probably miss the first three and score the fourth. So now this season, he's got it's really bad. One assist in 10 games or something.
He's the other part of his problem is like, since forever I've thought Phil Foden, I think obviously we're English fans, so we're going to get loads of media praise, but I think his physical ceiling's not that high. Like, he's not rapid and he's not strong. So what happened a lot today was he was picking a ball up and Gravenberch was literally like flicking him off the pitch. And that like became so easy. Like, McAllister started to do it, and McAllister's not quick. There was a moment actually right towards the end where I can't remember who, it was against Szoboszlai, where he had like 2 yards on Szoboszlai. Szoboszlai just ran in front of him and he couldn't find a way around him. And I think Zach's going to speak on this in a second, but I think like when your team is struggling, like City are now, like you need a guy who's willing to get on the ball all the time. Like Odegaard was for Arsenal, obviously they're paggering West Ham, but like he's getting the ball because he believes that even if he's playing a 2-yard pass sideways, he does it with such vigor, such intensity that it raises the level. At the moment, like Billy Foden's getting a ball and either giving it away or just getting shrugged and shifted out, like just getting bullied, really.
And what I'll say one more thing, and we'll talk about this later, but every single problem in the City team right now is stemming from Rodri's absence, and that's on the club. But it's almost like if you had a Jenga set and then you just took one too many Jenga pieces out, that's Rodri, and everything has collapsed. Because Rodri being at that
you papered over cracks as well, Adam. So I feel like a lot of the signings you've made, like Savinho, very, very decent player, but not a goal scorer. Then Doku's not a goal scorer. So I saw the craziest stat after the game. In your starting 11, there was one player who'd scored goals this season. Haaland was the only player in that starting 11 who scored in the league.
And there was five on the bench. And Vardiol's our second top scorer. Kovacic's our third, I think. So
we may as well, let's talk about City, because I'm sure Zach's going to talk about Foden anyway. I think like he's just sat there like revving it up. He's ready to whacking on a gauntlet. I think like if you look at City today, and I was chatting to Adam about this, because football works in narratives, right? Like we all believe in narratives that things are going to happen. So pre-match in all the shows that I was doing, I was going, City will have something for us. The fact that City didn't have something for us and Liverpool basically should have won by 4 or 5 makes me think there's fundamentally like something badly wrong. Like, I think there's a mentality issue, but this Gvardiol thing, I was saying when Ten Hag was at United, there was like Rashford who had 12 and then like Dalot who had like 2. I think when there's such a disparity between your goal scorers that the other goal scorer is not actually even meant to be scoring goals, you're in trouble. Like that guy's like if you look at Gvardiol's goals as well, they're bangers. So this is not like a case of like Guardiola's doing something to get Guardiola goals. This is a case of this individual technical footballer fancies whipping it with his right foot against Bournemouth top corner, and you're going, that's my guy. Eventually, he's a left back, stroke centre back. Eventually, that's going to run dry. Adam, I'll let you have your spiel on why you think City are like disintegrating before our eyes.
Rodri, again, if you even go back to last season, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously it was Phil, Haaland, but then I think it was Rodri in terms of goal involvement for City, and that was from a sixth position, floating those balls over to the right-hand side, and you just got and the pre-assist as well that came with it. Rodri was an attacking outlet as well as our best defensive one. So once you take that out of the team, I think in terms of the club's recruitment, 2 years ago we signed Calvin Phillips because the club knew this day would come where Rodri would get injured. They deemed him not good enough, and rightly so, but then they never replaced Calvin Phillips, and instead they signed Kovacic, who has done well. He's a good ball carrier, but he cannot screen a backline like Rodri could. That's just a fact. He can't play the lone pivot. And I actually don't even know. I know I'm meant to come in here with an opinion. I do not know what to say about Matheus Nunes. I have no opinion. I don't know what he does. I don't know where he plays. I don't know what his strengths are. He's decent off the ball.
Which I think, and sorry to keep interrupting, but I think he is a representation of kind of your transfer woes at the moment, where you signed, it feels like a luxury player, and that you could get him and he's nice, but once other pieces start falling and now he's in the spotlight and being asked to deliver, he can't really. So when you played against, what was it, Red Star in the Champions League, he looked incredible, but there's no pressure on him in that game. In a game like today, you're turning around and looking at that team thinking, you've got Rico Lewis right wing, Nunes left wing. Who is going to score? Who is going to damage?
No.
Because otherwise, Van Dijk, who had an immense game, by the way, he was incredible, will just look at Haaland and go, all right, we're going to deal with Haaland and don't worry too much about the other guys, which is crazy because you've got Trent, who his strongest asset isn't defending. And until the 60th minute when you brought on Doku, he was kind of let off the hook. And then when Doku came on, he was dangerous.
I think even Doku, like, I don't know if you guys would agree, but like he's a net positive because he gains yards. But I see him as like a rugby player at times. Like he gains you 30 yards, but then nothing happens.
Yeah.
You get that thing where they throw it in from the side. What's that called in rugby? You know, they throw it in.
My mate came up with the best analogy for Jeremy Doku, right? He said that watching Doku is like watching a speedboat with no driver. Because it's like, like when a speedboat bobs up and down on the waves, but it's got no direction. You don't know where it's going to go, and there's no purpose with it. So you're right. I thought he was a
like Adama. He's a bit like Adama, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like I thought he actually shifted the momentum of the game for a good 15 minutes today, Doku.
No, but you need players like that, though. You do need players like that. I think he does, and especially when you can get at Trent. I think my thing with City is I just think it's hard to just say anything, man. They've won 6 and 7. They literally.
As Guardiola said.
No, they do. But they play in like they win the Carabao Cup every year. I mean, they haven't won it last, but they like every competition, they're literally going all the way in it. There's gonna be a time where where this happens. So like for me, you can say, oh, it's this player on this side, and they don't replace this player, they don't replace that player. Like I just think like it's come to a point now where every player has just played so many games. They've won 6 and 7 titles. They're getting to Champions League finals, semi-finals. They're going far in every competition, FA Cup finals. Like the players are gonna be, like this is gonna happen.
Yeah, but
psychologically as well.
If you've spent the amount of money that City have, and this is my gripe with it, right? Like I hear it, they're knackered, and I actually have sympathy for some of these players because like Rodri was talking about getting injured before he got injured, and then he gets an injury that is sometimes, James can probably tell me, but is a result of overplaying. So I hear that, but their squad building has been atrocious.
No, 100%. But I think what's made them successful is a small squad. Like I think everyone talks about Chelsea like the last few years and how many players we've had, for example. But if you see now that our squad is smaller and stuff, we've got a little bit of rhythm. We can play. We got a little bit of a style of play coming along. And I think what makes City so good is that you know how they're gonna play. It's boring. I'm sorry, Adam, but it's so boring. Like watching a City game. Watching a City game is terrible. It's the most boring part. But the City fans don't care because they'll see 3 goals. We'll all be bored off our nuts because we want to see a good game. The City fans will enjoy it because they're winning. Yeah, but
is it boring at the moment? Is it boring at the moment to you?
No, it's great at the moment. To be fair, the thing is I don't want Arsenal to win it. Yeah, so it was a bit stressful at first, but now Liverpool have kind of come. I'm like, do you know what? it's a little because normally I'm thinking City have to win because otherwise Arsenal are going to win it, and that's going to just be terrible for me. Especially like I live in North London, and for like 15 years I haven't seen one Arsenal shirt. And like the last 3 years in Asda, everyone's got an Arsenal shirt on. Now I'm like, what's this about? but yeah, I don't know, man. When I think about City, I just find it hard to say anything because it's six and seven, man.
You make a good point as well. Sorry, just to say on the squad size, you make a really good point because it's true. Pep's made his own bed for this. It's bred the success, but this was also inevitable. So around 2020, and you can even think back. So that first iteration of that Pep team, you almost had two players in every position. So at left back, you even had Del Zinchenko, Jesus Aguero up top, Sane, Sterling, Mahrez as your wide man. Bernardo could play there. Foden coming through. David Silva, De Bruyne, Gundogan, Fernandinho, Rodri. Like there was a lot more top quality players. And then after I'd say it was around that Champions League final in Porto against Chelsea, the squad size started to get shaved down. Sterling left, Jesus left, and all that came in was Haaland. You know, Fernandinho left, nothing was done about that at all. And the squad slowly started to get smaller, but then every player within it was playing more games. So there was maybe more unity for 3 or 4 years, which has bred the success. But if you've got the same players playing 70 games a season, 4 years in a row, this is inevitable. It's just absolutely inevitable.
Which is why I can't be mad at it as well. You can't.
Do you know someone we actually just haven't mentioned though is Alvarez? When you were talking about players' output, we were talking about Haaland, Foden, Rodri. Alvarez was a big output, and he was a big Haaland. Surely Haaland's feeling this lack of competition isn't really the word because Alvarez wasn't going to replace Haaland, but it's just someone else who can provide and someone else who you could take Haaland out the firing line for a game, but Alvarez is gone.
Yeah. So well, I spoke to a couple of people who are like quite reliable and people at the club about this, and Savinho was basically signed to fill that Mahrez void, and obviously he was going to bed in, play on that right hand side. But I think what Pep had in mind this season, he obviously didn't foresee the injuries. But what he wanted to do is get rid of Alvarez. Gundogan obviously came in, and Gundogan's best ever season for City was as a false nine. So his thinking, I think, was if Haaland gets injured, we just shift Gundogan KDB as a false nine. Imagine he were to do that right now. Who would even play in the middle of the park? So it's.
I think the Alvarez deal, they just got an unrejectable amount of money.
Yeah.
Like, I know people are going to say like City are loaded, but every player has a price. Like if tomorrow Barca offer 300 million for Haaland, they'll sell him because every player has a price.
Especially for a second striker as well.
Yeah. Like they were almost like forced to sell him just purely because of the value that was put on the table. Because I don't think they were because it was also late. City don't do business like that, like where they don't have a backup. But where I agree, yeah, they've shaved the squad down. But I felt like the writing was on the wall when like Mahrez and Gundo left because I think you can't replace winners. And this is the whole conversation Liverpool fans are having now about replacing Van Dijk and Salah. Like these guys are not easy to replace because whoever you replace them with haven't been in title races. They haven't today's game, that Salah chance that he normally puts away, which he puts over the bar. But this guy is at this level because in 1 in 2 opportunities, he puts that away every time. And I'll liken it to someone like Martinelli, who I do actually like, but like James knows, he's probably missed 10 of those chances this season because he's not quite at the most premium level. So Liverpool would replace Salah, like you guys replace Mahrez with Savinho, and Savinho's a good footballer, but the level of the concentration in those really pivotal moments just doesn't have it.
Do you know what it is, Nubaid, as well? When we were talking before about City having a bigger squad, Savinho would be an understudy to a Sane or a Sterling or Mar. And then after a few seasons, you'd sell the main guy and then Savinho becomes the main guy and you have an understudy. Right now, your wingers are like Doku, Savinho. Even if Oscar Bob was there, none of these guys are traditionally, if they started in the Champions League final, you'd be like, it's a huge game for them. It's not, as Nubaid's saying, it's not a guy like Mahrez or Gundogan so it's weird. You're right. Pep did do that trimming squad thing, and I think Bielsa used to do this when he was in the league. And I know Pep loves Bielsa, so I don't know if it was linked to that. But we can sit here and debate like Zach says, but you can't argue with Pep's success. And today it was so funny. I reiterate, just him.
Do you know one more player that we're missing loads? You made the point then, Nubaid. It's right. So we lost winners in Mahrez and Gundo, and in that same 2 weeks that they left, Laporte left as well. And no City fans are talking about this, but Laporte's best attribute as a footballer was similar to Van Dijk. He had that long switch pass that used to like not break the lines to an extent, but he used to stretch the pitch for us and get the ball up quicker. We don't have a centre back now that's got his passing range or can do that. So now Akanji's having to push into almost this 8 position when we've got the ball because his passing range isn't quite as good as what Laporte's was. So we've almost lost that extra element of playing it out from the back that has just
I
gone.
think I it comes to what Zach was saying earlier, and I'm about to drop that big Foden question on you in a second, Zach. Because he somehow he's ducking this. Him and Bernardo Silva, whenever there's a big conversation, them guys are ducking. They're moving. I think because of the way football's evolved, the desire for build up to be really short, like every pass to be intricate, has like dissolved this ability for players, like in particular defenders, to play long diags, which is why Liverpool use it so effectively. They have a winger who hogs the byline, which is basically Sunday League 101, and your centre back who pings it over as frequently as possible. And if you think about even in the like Gabriel and Saliba are both top defenders, neither of them two do that. Konate doesn't even do that; he's a top defender. Chelsea centre backs, yeah, they ain't in that conversation. Lisandro Martinez doesn't do that. Like
No.
all these like Romero doesn't do it. Mickey Van der Ven doesn't. There isn't many centre backs in the Premier League who can hit an accurate diag because it's like a dying art in the game. So it's almost like anyone who's got that skill set is like a trump card, and Laporte was like unreal at that. But anyway, Zach, before we chat about Liverpool, Amir, a good friend of the pod, tweet saying this is going to sound reductive, but I think City actually just lack top quality players this year. So what has happened to this left-footed dynamite number 10 to that's not working, is it, Zach?
I don't know, man. My thing is, I feel like these English pundits, yeah, I think they've tried to just force this Phil Foden guy into something that he's not. Like, I think because there's always been this talk about like trying to get this smaller kind of like techie English player that they're trying to like bring through. Yeah, I feel like they saw this in Foden, and there's just been like an agenda to try and push him towards there. I don't know, man. I feel like he had I don't know. Oh.
He won Player of the Year last year. He was.
That's what drives me crazy because I can't believe he won that.
And do you know,
was
Zach,
yeah,
who's your favourite Chelsea player ever? Just it can be anyone.
Hazard.
But
Hazard.
right, okay, so perfect. That's the answer I wanted because he won the play. He's one of the best footballers I've ever seen. Hazard. He won PFA Player of the Year in 14-15, I believe, when Chelsea won the league under Mourinho. Last season after that, Chelsea imploded, and then he was ridiculed all season for having not scored a goal or an assist. He got 2 towards the end.
I agree with that, but before that, he had 4 unbelievable seasons as well. 4 unbelievable seasons, and then after that, he had another 2 unbelievable seasons as well. I think that one season, people really judge Hazard for that and make it seem like it was like always on and off thing with him when it really wasn't. Like, if you see how people talked back then, all of these players that were in the league, Hazard was very easily, even with the best player in the league when he was playing. My thing with Foden is I've never quite seen it with him. I don't know. I've seen that. I think because he has that kind of thing where he's kind of like a Spanish player, but he's English. They try and like push him to be that, and he's obviously he's a more talented player than a lot of the football players, but I do think that he is quite overrated in what he does. And when I watched him in the Euros, like, after a while, I just couldn't believe he was starting, man, and he was just doing nothing. And like, and I was seeing players on the bench. Like I won't say Cole Palmer because obviously I'm Chelsea at Cole Palmer. I was seeing even players like I'm thinking like Jared Bowen, Anthony Gordon. They're coming, yeah, and you're because they're names. You're laughing because I've said these names that are like, oh, Jared Bowen, Anthony Gordon, but you're in the end Foden because Jude was doing the 10 role. You're playing Foden on the wing. He's not a better winger than Jared Bowen or Anthony Gordon. And I was sitting there thinking the reason this guy's playing is just because of his name. And I do feel like he had a good season, but I do think that his Pep system is so suited to him, and he's still like he had a great season last season, 1 player of the year. I don't think he deserved to win it but I think they babied him so much, and that they've like tried to force him to be this like unbelievable player. And I look at him and I just think if you stuck him in West Ham or if you stuck him at Chelsea last season where you've got like Jared Bowen, or if you stuck him at Newcastle, I don't think he'd be anywhere near the players that are doing them kind of jobs in them teams. And because he's kind of like a technical player, and Gary Neville says, "Oh, England can't play without Foden," and like they say these things, I just think that they try and they overrate the guy so much. that's just how I feel about it. Like,
Can I just say, Zach, Nubaid asked you that question. He knew what he was getting at.
yeah, I
And
know.
as you're speaking, this guy's rubbing his hands together. I got
No,
him.
it's true. No, but I don't know, man. I just don't, and I don't know, man. I just watch Foden, and I just think they act like he can play in like all the front three positions. I don't think he can. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to
think-
say too much. I think
Adam's fuming.
Go on, Adam. Go on. No, go on. Go on.
Right. So first of all, I'll start with the England thing. I agree, but I don't think that's a Foden problem. I think that was a Southgate problem, and I think you could, across the board in the Euros, say that about almost every player. Maybe Bar Saka, but even Declan Rice in the Euros was completely misused because he can't play lone six. He needs someone like some things like that. Southgate, in my opinion, was an idiot, and yes, he should have dropped certain players in that team and didn't because of the clubs that they play for. So forget that. But I don't think it's on Phil. I think that was more on Southgate, and I think Tuchel will be more ruthless with any player. But as for, so you just said you don't think he can play across the front three. He won back-to-back PFA Young Player of the Year. His breakout season was the COVID season, and he played solely left wing. And I don't know if you remember, but there was games in the Champions League against PSG, Borussia Dortmund in the league. He was unbelievable from that left wing. Obviously, a left-footed left winger, just being direct and getting in the box. And the season after, he won Young Player of the Year playing false nine when we sold Aguero. Didn't really have a striker in that season. That one was a bit more contentious, but he was still good. Season after, scores a hat-trick in the Manchester derby. Like, I've watched him every week and I see this talent. What's gone wrong this season, I think, and again, it does stem from Rodri. The midfield's so disjointed. He's not picking up the ball in the areas of the pitch he wants to. So, like today, he was having to pick it up deeper and kind of drive in towards Liverpool's final third. And the thing is, sometimes Foden, unlike Kev, he don't have that pass into. He don't have that 40-yard through ball that maybe De Bruyne has got. What Phil likes is to get the ball on the turn in a phone box and then either get a shot off or pop it out wide. So,
and that's why, Adam, that's why Rodri is such a blow for Foden, especially because he was the guy who found him.
100%.
And Joe is, I agree with that, but I do think that he's been eased into this unbelievable City team very, very well. And I just personally think that when you're a creative player and you're a creative player with Kevin De Bruyne playing every week, your job is very, very easy. And it happened with England where it's like, I think Gary Neville said it a few years ago, it's like Phil Foden has now got all the responsibility to become England's best creative player, and he hasn't done it. All right, cool, that's Southgate's fault. It's not Foden's. But now he's got that in Pep's team where now the responsibility is on him. Yeah, you got Rodri out, okay, that affects him. But De Bruyne was out last season. He's done well. He done well. But what took City to the next level last season towards the end? Because even like last season, I was thinking, oh, like, are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? De Bruyne came back, they done it. And I think like De Bruyne's gone again, and it's like, oh, now it's Foden's turn, and it's like,
I think a lot.
Go on, Nubaid.
I think a lot of what all of you said is actually quite true, because I think that for me anyway, I've started to see football from like more of a circumstantial view recently. That like Rodri being out means Foden's level drops because he's the cog in the team. But equally, I do agree with Zach, and I said this for ages. Like Foden's 24, but people still talk about him like he's 20. And for me, that's where I go. Like what I said earlier. You mentioned Mata and David Silva, and these are like diminutive, small Spanish guys who were getting like the shit kicked out of them when they first came to the league. But by the time they played for 2 or 3 years, they were demanding the ball. They wanted to change the game, and they weren't that vocal. I don't know David Silva, but I never looked at him and went, he's going to scream and shout and get this team going. But his actions spoke for him.
I personally think, you say these 2 PFA Young Player of the Years, but I think they kind of, I don't know. I feel like it was like an agenda from the British media to try and make him this new next thing. I'm not like a conspiracy theorist that's saying, oh, like he didn't deserve these things. I personally just think they kind of wanted this, so he got these Young Player of the Year awards and stuff like this. That when really like what he was doing to win these awards was like a bit part kind of player in a City team that was just unbelievable, and he was coming in and out, and that's still very, very good to do, but. Like I said, go back to. I'm watching Cole Palmer not so much this season. Last season, he's coming to a team and he's performing against all the teams and he's getting the ball from everywhere. And they're almost the reason Cole Palmer wasn't playing for Man City was because of Foden, really and truly, because they're kind of a similar. And I've just watched this guy and he's just getting the ball from anywhere. He's getting lumps kicked out of him. He's just demanding, and he took that last season. It was a very, very mediocre Chelsea team that was still learning. Loads of players like a new thing, and he's the only reason that we even got close to top 4.
I think with Palmer, it's the Pep versus. So I do think that if Palmer had broke through at City, he wouldn't have been as good as he was at Chelsea. I think that's the Pep versus other managerial systems debate. Palmer's been given so much more freedom than Pep would have ever given him. And behind Palmer at City was, I'd say, Mahrez and Bernardo Silva. And I think he was wrongfully seen as a right midfielder at City, when I think he's a number 10 now. I watch him. So I think that is down to Pep, and sometimes he compartmentalises certain players incorrectly. But I think with Phil, he's played so many varied roles. And what I'd say on the David Silva point, I don't think Phil's anything like David Silva, but a lot of people on Twitter, and people who are wrong, by the way, because Silva's the best City player I've ever seen wear a City shirt, they slag David Silva off for not scoring goals or getting stats or whatever. So what was the expectation on David Silva in big games years gone by for him to do and step up? Because he never stepped up with a goal, or he rarely did. All he'd ever do was pull on the shirt, not lose the ball, and dictate the tempo of the game. And he also had a better ability than anyone to take the sting out of it. That was what David Silva did. That's never been what Foden's been good at. He is a goal-scoring midfielder, and he's not as creative as what David Silva was. I don't think he ever has. He's a ruthless goal scorer from that number 10 position. So I think they're very different.
I think fans are smart enough to know when they're having an impact on the game. And I think it was the same with Hazard at Chelsea. It wasn't always a goal and assist, but you can see that this guy's getting the ball off the centre backs, and he's just running the game. And it's similar with Odegaard. Like, it doesn't always. I think fans are smart enough now and to understand that it's not just a goal or assist that means that you're having a very, very good game.
I think that the key word you use there is impact, right?
Yeah.
Even like, I remember when Fabregas became Arsenal captain, like I was like, why is this guy Arsenal captain? Because he doesn't talk, but his actions were impactful. Like, he did things that, like, even Thomas Rosicky, actually, I don't know why Arsenal was always in my head, but even Thomas Rosicky was captain for his international team, and he'd just do things that were so, like, intentionally impactful. Like,
He's
you'd
leading
feel
by example, isn't it? Basically. The
player...
player...
maybe it's harsh to say like Foden isn't leading by example, because maybe he doesn't want to lead by example.
I don't think he's got the character to. And like you said to De Bruyne, what you said about De Bruyne earlier is exactly right, because he was that. He came on it against Newcastle mid last season when he did his injury, and you're right, he won
when
the
he
game
had his fresh trim.
Yeah, it's unfresh. Unfresh trim, but it's it was long, wasn't it? But he won the game on his own.
I think impact isn't just like. There's different types. There's impacts on the football. There's impacts on your teammates. There's impacts on your opposition. Like you said, Doku today just coming on, it kind of shook up Trent a bit. I think there's different types of impacts that you can have on the pitch. And yeah, I don't know. I just maybe
I feel like we're gonna have this conversation a lot, so I'm gonna.
We
spent 20 minutes chatting about Phil Foden, and you know what? Bernardo Silva's still ducked away, and we ain't got time for him. Bernardo Silva's still hiding. That's another episode of Escape with Bernardo Silva. Very quickly, I'm going to ask you guys this question. Obviously, everyone's talking about Liverpool being 11 points clear. I'm pretty sure, 11 points clear of City, 9 points clear of Arsenal. I saw a stat earlier that said like any team that's been 6 points or more clear have gone on to win the league or something like that at this point, which I feel like is not true, because it was a Sky Sports stat, but I'm pretty sure I've seen teams who are like...
I was going to say, I think Ollie's United in the COVID season were like 8 points clear at one point. Around now.
Yeah.
They were flying.
But what they do, they say like at this point. So it's like this specific week when, okay, what about in 2 weeks' time or something? But no, they manipulate the stats constantly.
Yeah, honestly, I was confused by that. But anyway, obviously everyone on Twitter and socials is saying like Liverpool are red hot favourites now. I'll ask you first, James. You're an Arsenal fan. This is a season I expected you to win it. Do you think Liverpool are red hot favourites?
Yes, of course. And I think any Liverpool fan that is denying that is trying to do the Arsenal fan thing of, oh yeah, we don't want the pressure. And it will be interesting because, to be honest, today was the first game where you've gone into the game as like the best team in the league, obviously, with pressure on, not pressure on you, but you're not the underdogs now. You can't hide under the guise of it just being, oh, you're just on a red hot streak. You are the serious team now. And today, people looking at it think, will they falter? And absolutely not. I missed the first 30 minutes because I didn't realize the game kicked off at 4 for no reason.
I saw your tweet. Well, those were the 30 minutes that would identify us as like favourites for the title.
Yeah,
that
so I heard.
The 60 minutes you watched after that were not even true to what happened in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think there's no reason why. Someone tweeted it well. I don't know exactly how I describe this, but if the season started and it was 25 games, and Liverpool started on 9 points, would they be title favourites? Yes, obviously. So I do
So
think the gap
can
is gone.
can I add, because I feel like everyone's going to disagree with this, but being a Liverpool fan in the conversation, let me add my context, and you guys can disagree away. I think, and I was saying this to Adam before, Liverpool historically as a football club have never done anything the simple way. Like, this club doesn't win things the way City do. City are robotic; they go through teams. I was at the Madrid game. That was the most un-Liverpool Champions League night I've ever experienced. Like, there was no drama. Nothing happened. Obviously, there's a penalty miss, but Liverpool were always going to win that game. And we could have played that game 8 times over in the current situation. We were always going to win that game. We played City today, and I felt like it could have been a draw, but deep down, I was like, if the story plays out how it's meant to, as it has been, we'll win this game comfortably. We did again. And I think Liverpool, when they have a blip, will have a really bad blip because we've seen perfection so far. And football doesn't work in this like linear way that you'll just keep winning and winning and winning.
It's because, sorry, Zach, just one thing. I think the reason for that is because Liverpool are such an emotional football club. Like, and Anfield is a very emotional stadium. Man City just are more like a well-oiled machine. So the highs, yeah, you've got a more stability. Whereas Liverpool, when Anfield is booming like today, you can't touch them. And every player is winning every duel, and it will be when things start going against you, when you have some. I think the next few weeks are massive. I know people have spoken about all these hard games that you've been through, but I think St James's Park and Goodison, they are really, really difficult games. Just knowing the context, if you get through them, then I'm confident you will win the title. Right now, we still have a chance.
I personally think that the only thing that stops Liverpool is injuries. I think I've got me and my friends talk a lot about football, as we all do, and I've always said that I think Liverpool's first 11 has always, like, in all of these years, is probably the best when it's fit. I don't know. I just think if you just go through them, when like a few years ago it was Mane, Salah, Van Dijk, Alisson. Even now, their depth that they've got like in the front positions is crazy. Van Dijk's best centre half in the league. Alisson, when fit, is probably the best goalkeeper in the league. Trent,
Gravenberch is the best midfielder in the world, by the way.
Trent,
He's
when Trent,
unbelievable.
going forward, like Trent's probably the best fullback in the league. Defensively, he's all right, but it doesn't matter from what he brings going forward. I think Robertson's fallen off a bit, but in like recent, I think if you go through their team, the last 4 or 5 years, I do think they have the best. I think what's always let them down is their depth, and it's the same. It's the same here, man. I think if they all stay fit, I think they'll win the league easily. I think the issue is I think if something happens to Verge, they're in trouble, and I think if something happens to Salah, they're in trouble.
The levels of those two this season have been ridiculous.
I think most seasons it's been like that, but I think if you actually look at it, like Salah's a robot. He always seems to be fit. But like even like I think Verge getting injured and stuff like that, and then having to come back, like people don't understand what injury he had and how long it takes to come back from something like that. I think you're just seeing that kind of now, and like I said, that I think their first 11 when fit has always been like one of the best. So if they can stay fit, I think they'll be.
Zach, quick question: Terry or Verge?
What a question.
It's different, man. I think obviously I'm gonna go JT. Obviously I'm gonna go JT just because I think what he done, man. Like five titles as captain as well. And I was watching a Troy Deeney interview the other day, and he said that what made it so difficult, which you didn't see, is that he said he played against Chelsea once, and the control that he had over all of the back four was just insane. It's like you like he wasn't just in complete control of them all. But I think what the argument for Verge is that he's just got every attribute that's so crazy. Like he's so fast, he's strong. He obviously leads his line as well. I don't know.
Here's a question: if let's say you got a Champions League final tomorrow, and you pick in Verge or Terry, who you pick?
Well, one of them missed a penalty by slipping in one, so you know. You got
And Verge actually scored a penalty against Chelsea when Kepa went to that side of the net. He still put it
that
over.
was so funny.
But one also led his team to 5 Premier Leagues.
But we're talking about trophies.
Yeah.
Trophies with individuals.
Yeah, I'm going JT. I always goes for my boy JT, man. I think JT is very underrated in terms of like his passing range and stuff as well. People really kind of like disregard that. They think that he was like some warrior centre half. Like he was actually like a Rolls Royce on the ball as well.
I do also think it probably does an impact on the way we view him is probably how he behaves.
Yeah, I do see that as well. Yeah,
so
definitely.
like I cannot defend John Terry in any conversation. You ask me John Terry or Igor Bishkan, I'll take Igor Bishkan at centre back.
You are showing your age with Igor Bishkan because I do not know who that is.
You don't know who that is?
Igor Bishkan. Am I being stupid?
Wait, Adam, Zach, do you know who Igor Bishkan is?
He sounds Croatian.
I think he was Croatian. He played for Liverpool. Zach, do you know who Igor Bishkan is?
Very roughly.
Yeah. No, he didn't play much
football. From 2000 to 2005.
Yeah, he probably played about 40 games for us.
72 appearances.
Mad. I bet you didn't complete a single 90.
Croatian as well, Adam. Great shout.
Nice.
There we go.
Adam's got the geography on lock.
It's that little C with like the bit underneath it. Bish. All Croatian, that. Modric.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no.
Finally, before we wrap, I didn't know this, but I've literally got the production document in front of me. Chelsea have an identical record to Arsenal, but aren't considered contenders. Why? Like,
because the myth is not Chelsea. The myth is that Arsenal are contenders. I think more than Chelsea being contenders. I think do you know what my thing?
Go on, Zach. Go on.
I think personally, Arsenal 2 seasons ago, the way they played was unbelievable. I think we said this last time. I think the way they played was unbelievable, and I think Arteta was so scared of this. He's changed like the whole team just so that he can try and beat City over them 2 games. When I think that's affected how he then goes and plays against other teams.
Sorry, that's not true. We got more points last season than the previous season. For the past 5 seasons, we were getting more points season on season. In the run-in last season, we won 16 out of our last 18 games, drawing 1 at the Etihad and losing 1 against Villa, which is disastrous when Man City exist. The reason why Arsenal are still considered in the title and Chelsea aren't is because of that exact reason. Arsenal have the capability of winning 16 out of 18 games as far as we're aware Chelsea aren't. So Chelsea are doing very well at the moment, but if they continue this pace, they're on for about 75 points. So the theory is, can Arsenal put up an unbelievable run? Yes, we've seen it. Can Chelsea? Maybe, but we've not seen it. And Maresca himself says you're not in a title race.
Yeah, I don't think we're in a title race, but I think my thing is that I don't think that Arsenal have what it takes to get over the line in any of these situations. Like I said, Europa League, you lost to Sporting when you were the better team in that game. But when you're the better team, you should have won that game. You then have the same situation in the Champions League last year where that was a very bad Bayern Munich team. They've knocked you out. I just don't think that you have what it takes to get over the line in things.
But then if Liverpool get big players injured, who are the only other team that are going to win it? Because it is only going to be Arsenal. Like that.
So that's my thing was I got asked this the other day and I said the only way Liverpool win it if there's no one else ready to win it. And I still stand by that.
Like there is, man. That's why I think it'll be so hard for Liverpool to lose this now. Not because I don't actually think that the teams chasing are as good in terms of like how City are performing. I don't know, man. It's a lot of points now as well to lose.
But 9 points is 3 games. Like this is where I was saying to everyone, like the narrative is interesting because Liverpool have lost once, and so effectively they've been perfect, 100%,
right? But like what you're assuming now, then if you're saying 9 points is 3 games, that's assuming right. Cool. Now you're saying Arsenal are the ones chasing; they're going to win every game as well. Like,
do you know what I think though? Do you know why I think Arsenal could catch Liverpool? So like when I remember when City first won their title, City had a reason to want to win it, and they were chasing Sir Alex Ferguson's United. Arsenal, I think, have, like you alluded to, Zach, have had a little bit of a fear factor with Pep City for the last 2 or 3 years. Now they're out the picture. If the team they've got to smell blood on is Arne Slot's Liverpool, I think they will do it with ease. Because like James said, the record that they showed, I think they're top of the Premier League if you go off just the calendar year, Arsenal.
Yeah.
Oh, brother, right? But we did that like 4 times, man, and we still kept losing the league.
Exactly.
I don't agree with all of that, man. I personally just think, that it's Liverpool's to lose now, man. I don't like 9 points is it's
Yeah,
barely
it is. It
barely
is. That's
erased.
correct.
I
That is
it's barely
correct. I think
erased.
most people would agree with that. To be fair, though.
Like I said, I'm happy just to not even be seen as contenders for now because I don't think that we are. Like I said, I think with Arsenal, I just don't think that they have what it takes to get over the line because we don't have to say you have to win the league, but you haven't won anything. And I feel like how good this team is.
Yeah, but when you say like you haven't won anything, I hate when people make this argument because if we won an FA Cup along the way, then yes, you can do what Ten Hag does and say I won a League Cup and an FA Cup. In the grand scheme of things, that makes no difference.
No,
So
100%, it doesn't make a difference. But you haven't shown that you can win anything. This great team can't even win anything.
I think when Klopp won his first trophy, the feeling changed. And I think Arteta, obviously, he hasn't won a trophy with this team. Obviously, won it with Aubameyang. I think if he wins, and this is where I do think you slightly missed the trick, that if you won a trophy last year, honestly, from literally just speaking from experience, you get this feeling that you can get over the line.
His first one was the Champions League, though, wasn't it? So that's like one of the major two.
Yeah.
I don't think because like when Ten Hag won those like FA Cup, it's not like all right, we've gone up a level here because like Liverpool as a team were building so much.
Ten Hag's level was like to win a trophy to get top 4.
Yeah.
Whereas like I think Arsenal's would be like to win a trophy to get the feeling that you can go.
No, but I think with Klopp though, if you look at Klopp, he took Liverpool to a Europa League final. Yeah. He then took them to a Champions League final and another Champions League final and then a league. I don't know. You look at this Arsenal team, like they pushed City close. Did they? Do you know what I mean? They pushed them to the last. Like,
what do you mean? Did they? We pushed them to the last day, and then City. This was a City team that won the treble, and City team that have been unbelievable for years. Greatest manager of all time, one of the greatest club sides of all time. Yeah. You're acting as if like not beating this Man City to a title is a scrub.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying what the scrubby part is that you got knocked out of the Europa League by Sporting.
I think you can. It sounds stupid, but you can get a vibe of whether a team can challenge for a title. This Arsenal team now, you look at players like Saka, he's not a sprightly youngster anymore. He comes into games, puts fear in the defenders. Players like Saliba, Odegaard, Rice, these guys are now not Van Dijk, Salah level in terms of like colossusness, but when they're on the pitch, the way they carry themselves, we are title challengers, whereas these Chelsea guys, Chelsea to me feel like Arsenal when we first burst onto the scene, and teams didn't really know how to play against us. You really impress everyone, and I think it will take a few years for this Chelsea team to mature and players like Jackson to then have that, we hate the word, aura. So that's, I guess, as I say, on face value, that's the reason why Arsenal 100%. Can and Chelsea can't.
It feels like that Liverpool without Alisson and Van Dijk, that crazy Liverpool that was just great to watch and like was a good team, but they'd lose 4-0 to Spurs or whatever it was that time. It does feel a bit like that, yeah.
I think both Arsenal and Liverpool have symmetrical problems. If Salah or Saka get injured, we're in big trouble. Both of us, and it's a huge advantage to the other team. If Saliba or Van Dijk get injured, huge advantage to the other team. But I think the narrative can change fast. Liverpool play Newcastle away, then Everton, and before the 5th of Jan, Liverpool have to play Manchester United, they have to play West Ham away, they have to play Tottenham, and in that time, Arsenal play Everton at home, Palace, Ipswich, Brentford. So like that's why I'm saying like the pendulum's going to swing. It just depends how hard it's going to swing. Like how quickly can Arne Slot's Liverpool team dig themselves out? I think the one big crushing factor that I think, for me anyway, gives Liverpool more than the points, genuinely more than the points, is Salah. Like when you've got this guy who, like there's one player that I think, if I put him in Arsenal's team, Arsenal are going to win the league. If I put him in City's team, maybe not right now, City are going to win the league. It's him. Because there's things he's doing that are like, the pass today is just like, Gakpo's run is made by Salah's pass. It's not the other way around. Salah didn't pass it because Gakpo made a run. He then goes and obviously bags the pen. Midweek against Madrid, like he didn't touch the ball for about 40 minutes, and then he spins Mendy inside out. Like I'm going, this guy at any given, Southampton the same, obviously it's Southampton, but if in 10 minutes he won Liverpool a game. And when you have that sort of player, it reminds me of De Bruyne like in his pomp at City, where like the chips are down and this guy just goes, I'm going to smash one in from 55 yards, or I'm going to put a ball in for Sterling on a play that even Sterling's not going to miss. Like these guys that can do those things, they can, in weird seasons like this, those guys can sometimes win you the league. Anyway, I said I wanted to keep this pod under an hour. Somehow we've trickled our way up to an hour. Genuinely, this has been probably one of my favorite chats, to be fair, because I think now we're in a period of the season where it's like heating up. Definitely not Adam's favorite.
Yeah,
chat,
I was just going to say, it's been like an episode of Succession. I've sat here thinking, who's going to take it off me? You three are fighting to try and get it. I've been like, right.
Facts. James, Zach, Adam, thank you very much for hopping on. If you're watching on YouTube, all the episodes now do go on YouTube, so obviously subscribe, like, follow the channel. I think this week Mastermind finals coming out, so there's plenty of content coming your way, and it's good because I just watched the final draft, so stay tuned for that, and obviously follow all the guys, links in the description, and we'll see you in the next one.
Adios.